So who was Robert Arthur? Robert Arthur was not only a short story writer, he was also a novelist, and he used to write script for television. So let's read the story and find out who is the midnight visitor. So the story revolves around three characters. Okay, the two rival spies named Osable and Max, and the Fowler, another one who is a writer, okay, a mystery writer. So the story revolves around three characters. There are three characters in the story. Osable, and Max. These two are rival spies. And Fowler, who is a mystery writer. Okay, so these three characters are present in the story. The central, now I will tell you the central idea of the story. The story is based on Osable's intelligence and how he created a story about a non-exist balcony. Okay, so now I am going to write the central idea of the story. The central idea of the story. The story is based upon Osable's intelligence and how he created a story about a non-exist balcony. Okay, the central idea of the story is about, the story is based upon Osable's intelligence. We will see how he had created a story about a non-exist balcony. This is all about the story. Let's read the story and find out that who is the midnight visitor. Osable did not fit any description of a secret agent. Okay, so Osable was the secret agent Fowler had ever read. So Fowler did not find that Osable looked like a secret agent. So Osable did not look like a secret agent as Fowler had ever read in the story. Following him down the musty corridor of the gloomy French hotel where Osable had a room. So Fowler was following to Osable. Osable was going down the musty corridor of the gloomy French hotel. So he used to live in a dark French hotel, and they were moving down the musty corridor. Musty means damp, okay, and gloomy means dark. What meanings I am writing here? I am writing down the word meanings. Note it down. Musty means damp, gloomy means dark. Okay, so Fowler was following to Osable, and he was they were walking down the damp corridor of the dark French hotel where Osable had a room. Fowler felt let down. Fowler felt depressed. Why? Because Ausable, first of all, he did not look like a secret agent as Fowler had expected, as he had read in many detective story, and he used to live in a very gloomy, musty French hotel. Fowler felt let down. So Fowler felt very depressed. It was a small room. So Ausable used to live in a small room on the 6th and top floor. So he used to live on the 6th and top floor of the hotel, and scarcely a setting for a romantic adventure. So it is merely a setting for a romantic or imaginative adventure or experience. Ausable was, for one thing, fat, very fat. So Ausable was extremely fat, and then there was his accent, and even he was having a different accent. Accent means a distinctive way of pronouncing a language. Okay, so accent means a distinctive way of pronouncing a language. Though he spoke French and German passably. Passably means just well enough. Passably means just well enough. Okay, so though he spoke French and German passably, so he could speak French and German just well enough. He had never altogether lost the American accent he had brought to Paris from Boston 20 years ago. So he had been living in Paris for 20 years, and though he could speak French and language just well enough, but he had never lost the American accent. You were disappointed, Ausable said wheezily over his shoulder. So Ausable spoke by breathing noisily over his shoulder that you were disappointed. Why Fowler was disappointed? Fowler was expecting that Ausable was a secret agent. Okay. So wheezily means spoke by breathing noisily. Wheezily means spoke by breathing heavily or noisily. Heavily or noisily. You were told that I was a secret agent, a spy dealing in espionage and danger. So Fowler was told by someone that Ausable was a secret agent. He was a spy. He's a spy, and he used to deal in spying. Espionage means spying and dangerous things like crime scenes like that. Okay, so espionage means spying. Espionage means spying. So as Fowler was a mystery writer, so he wanted to get many information from Ausable. So he was expecting to meet a secret agent just like Ausable, and he had been told that Ausable was a secret agent. He was a spy, and he used to deal with spying and those criminal scenes and danger. He wished to meet me because you used to meet me because you were a writer, young and romantic. Fowler wanted to meet Ausable because he was a writer, he was young and romantic. He envisioned mysterious figures in the night, the crack of pistols, drugs in the wine. Even Fowler, as a writer, he used to imagine different figures in the night, because he would write something for a story, and he used to hear the crack of pistols and drugs in the wine. So as he was a writer, he used to imagine different types of figures in the night. Instead, you have spent a dull evening in a French music hall with a sloppy fat man. Sloppy means poorly dressed. So instead of spending in a French music hall, Fowler had spent with this sloppy fat man. That means sloppy means poorly dressed fat man. Instead of having messages slipped into his hand by dark-eyed beauties, gets only a prosaic telephone call making an appointment in his room. Prosaic means ordinary. So he used to receive messages via telephone instead of dark-eyed beauties getting him his messages. You have been bored. That means Fowler was bored with Ausable because he was a very fat man, poorly dressed, and the fat man chuckled to himself as he unlocked the door. So Ausable, when he was unlocking the door, he laughed quietly and stood aside to let his frustrated guest enter. And as Fowler was expected that Ausable was a secret agent, but Ausable did not reveal it in front of Fowler. So Fowler was quite depressed, and Ausable was standing aside, and he allowed his guest Fowler to enter his room. Chuckled means laughed quietly. You were disillusioned, you were disappointed, Ausable told him. But take cheer, you must be cheerful. Why, my young friend? Presently you will see a paper, a quite important paper for which several men and women have risked their lives. Come to me. So, as Fowler was feeling disillusioned. Why? Because he was expecting to meet a secret agent, and he had expected that Ausable was a secret agent. So Ausable was telling to be cheerful, and he will show him a paper, a quite important paper, a report for which several men and young women have risked their lives. Someday soon that paper may well affect the course of history. Even that paper, the report, that important paper might affect the course of history also, in that it can change the history. In that thought is drama, is there not? If you want to find any drama in the thought, you can find it. As he spoke, Ausable closed the door behind him. So when he was speaking, Ausable closed the door behind him, then he switched on the light, then he turned on the light. As the light came on, as he turned on the light, Fowler had his first authentic thrill of the day. Okay, authentic means genuine. So for the first time, Fowler had experienced the genuine thrill of that day. What he had seen, what both had seen. For halfway across the room, a small automatic pistol in his hand stood a man. So they found a man was standing inside the room, half away across the room he was standing, and he had a small automatic pistol in his hand. Ausable blinked a few times. Okay, so he became thoughtful. Max, he wheezed. So Oswald could recognize the man, that person who was standing inside the room was Max. You gave me quite a start. You just startled me. You just surprised me. I thought you were in Berlin. So Oswald thought that Max was in Berlin. What are you doing here in my room? So Oswald asked him that what he was doing in his room. Max was slender, a little less than tall, with features that suggested slightly the crafty, pointed countenance of a fox. Countenance means facial expression. Now we will get the description of Max, how he looks like. So we have already seen the description of Oswald. Oswald was a fat man, poorly dressed, and Max was thin. He was middle heighted and with a feature just like a shrewd facial expression, just like a fox. There was about him, aside from the gun, nothing especially menacing. Menacing means threatening. Menacing means threatening. So nothing seemed harmless except the gun. Okay, so nothing seemed threatening except the gun he was holding, and he was standing and he was pointing towards Oswald and Fowler. The report, he murmured. So he spoke in a very light voice that he wanted to take that report. The report that is being brought to you tonight concerning some new missiles. I thought I would take it from you. It will be safer in my hands than in yours. So the report that will come to Oswald's house that night, it is all about some new missiles. Okay, missiles is a weapon which is automatically directed by remote. I thought I would take it from you. And Max told that he would take the report from Oswald. It will be safer in my hands than in yours, and that report would be more safe in his hands, would be safer in his hands than under the custody of Oswald. So this is said to create a humor that as he just wanted the report for his own benefit. Oswald moved to an armchair and sat down heavily. So Oswald moved to an armchair and he sat down on the armchair. I am going to raise the devil with the management. Raise the devil means make a noisy disturbance, or they will involve in a fight. So I am going to raise the devil with the management this time, and you can bet on it. So Oswald told that he was just going to fight with the management. Okay, so raise the devil means make a noisy disturbance. That means Oswald was going to fight with the management of the hotel. He said grimly, this is the second time in a month that somebody has got into my room through the nuisance of a balcony. So the balcony was the main problem, and this was the second time in the month that somebody has entered in his room without permission through that balcony. Okay, so that's why he is going to fight with the management of the hotel. Fowler's eyes went to the single window of the room. So Fowler looked towards the window, the single window which was present in the room. It was ordinary window. It was just a simple window against which now the night was pressing blackly, and he could see that it was very dark outside. Balcony, Max said with a rising inflection. So Max asked, where was the balcony? No, a pass key. Pass key is the master key. Okay, pass key is the master key. So Max entered Oswald's room with the help of a master key. He did not get inside through the balcony. I did not know about the balcony. So Max told that he did not know, he was fully unaware of the presence of the balcony. It might have saved me some trouble had I known. So if I would know about the balcony, then it would save me from some trouble. It's not my balcony, Oswald said with extreme irritation. So Oswald got very angry and said that it was not his balcony. He became very irritated. It belongs to the next apartment. So the balcony belonged to the next apartment of that hotel. He glanced explanatorily at Fowler. Glanced means to look at. Glanced means to look at. So Oswald looked at Fowler by giving explanation. You see, he said, this room used to be a part of a large unit. So this room where he was living, it is a part of a large unit, and the next room through the door there used to be the living room, and the next room through that door, it was a living room. It had the balcony which extends under my window now. So now it had the balcony which extends up under his window. You can get onto it from the empty room. So you can get inside my room from that empty room, just 2 doors opposite to their room. And somebody did last month, and somebody also entered in his room last month. The management promised to block it off. The management was quite sure and promised him that he would block this passage, but they have not. But they haven't blocked that passage or blocked that balcony. Max glanced at Fowler. So Max was looking at Fowler, who was standing steeply not far from Oswald. So he was standing not far from Oswald, and he was standing stiffly. He was very serious and waved the gun with a commanding gesture. So Max waved the gun in front of Fowler with a commanding gesture. Please sit down, he said. So he instructed Fowler to sit down. We have a wait of half an hour, I think. So we have to wait for half an hour for that report. 31 minutes, Oswald said moodily. So Oswald with mood, Oswald said moodily that they have to wait for 31 minutes. The appointed was for 12:30. So the appointment was fixed up at 12:30. That's why they have to wait for 30 minutes, and now during that time it was 12 o'clock. I wish I knew how you learned about the report, Max. And Oswald wanted to know that how he had come to know about the report, and how he had come to know that report was going to come in Oswald's hand. The little spy smiled evilly. So who was that little spy? The little spy was Max. He was smiling wickedly. Okay, evilly means wickedly. So who was that little man? Little man was Max, and he was smiling evilly because Oswald wanted to know that how Max had come to know about that report, and we wish we knew how your people got the report. But no harm has been done. I will get it back tonight. And Max also wanted to know that how Oswald's team had got the report, and there was no harm with this because he would take it from Oswald that night. Who is that? Who is at the door? So suddenly a knock was heard at the door, and Max was asking that who is there at the door. Fowler jumped at the sudden knocking at the door. Fowler was also surprised when he heard the sudden knocking at the door. Oswald just smiled. Oswald was smiling. That will be the police, he said. So he quickly replied that the police had arrived. I thought that such an important paper as the one we are waiting for should have a little extra protection. So Oswald told that important report, that important paper which we are waiting, which they were waiting, they should, and the important paper should get a little extra protection. So that's why he had called, Oswald had called police. I told them to check on me to make sure everything was all right. So Oswald called police because to check on him, to make sure that everything was quite well and there was no such problem. Max bit his lip nervously. Now Max became nervous. The knocking was repeated. Again the knocking continued. What will you do now, Max? Oswald asked. So Oswald asked him, what he will do now, Max? If I do not answer the door, they will enter anyway. So if he would not answer them, then they will break the door and they will enter inside the room. The door is unlocked. Even the door was also unlocked. So they will open the door and they will come inside. And they will not hesitate to shoot, and if they will see you that you are holding a gun in front of them, then they will not hesitate to shoot you. Max's face was black with anger. So Max became very angry because Oswald had called the police and the police had already arrived, and if the police had seen him with this gun and he was standing with the gun, then obviously they are going to shoot him. As he backed swiftly towards the window. Now Max became angry and nervous and he moved towards the window. He swung a leg over the sill. So now he moved a leg over the sill of the window. Send them away, he warned. So Max warned Oswald to send this police away from this room. I will wait on the balcony, and Max was going to wait on the balcony. Send them away or I will shoot and take my chances. Again he warned them that to send this police away, otherwise he would shoot them. The knocking at the door became louder. So again the knocking was heard. It became louder and a voice was raised and somebody asked, Mr. Oswald, Mr. Oswald. So somebody was asking from outside of the door, Mr. Oswald, Mr. Oswald, keeping his body twisted so that his gun still covered the fat man and his guests. So again the knocking of the door was heard. Somebody was calling from outside of the door and he became nervous. Max became nervous and he kept his body twisted and he was sitting on the windowsill so that his gun still covered the fat man and his guests, and he was pointing his gun towards Max, towards Oswald and his guest is Fowler, the writer. The man at the window grabs the frame with his free hand to support himself. Who is the man at the window? The man at the window was Max. He was holding the frame with his free hand to support himself. So in one hand he was holding the rifle, and in another hand he was holding the frame of the window. Then he swung his other leg up and over the windowsill. So another leg, he swung up another leg and he was sitting on the windowsill. The door knob turned. When the door knob turned, swiftly Max pushed with his left hand to free himself from the sill. So Max pushed his left hand to free himself from the sill because he wanted to jump in the balcony, and he dropped to the balcony. So then and there, as soon as he left his left hand, he just jumped into the balcony to rescue himself from the police. And then as he dropped, he screamed once shrilly. Shrilly means in high pitch. In high pitch. So as soon as he dropped in the balcony, he started to shout in a high-pitched sound. The door opened and a waiter stood there with a tray, a bottle and 2 glasses. So the door knob turned and obviously the door opened, and a waiter was standing instead of a police, and he was holding a tray, a bottle and 2 glasses. Here is the drink you ordered for when you returned, he said. So the waiter told Oswald that here is the drink, I have come here to serve the drink, and as you have ordered it when you have returned, and set the tray on the table. The waiter set the tray on the table, deftly uncorked the bottle. The waiter skillfully draw the cork from the bottle and left the room. Deftly means skillfully. Uncork means withdraw the cork. So the waiter came inside the room, came inside Oswald's room. He placed the tray on the table and he skillfully withdraw the cork of the bottle and left the room. White faced, Fowler became surprised. Fowler became pale. Fowler stared at him. Fowler was looking at him, but he stammered. He started to stammer. He said, "The police? Where is the police? You have said that the police was waiting outside." "There were no police," Oswald sighed. Oswald sighed with a great relief that there was no police, only Henry, whom I was expecting. So Oswald was expecting for Henry. Who was Henry? Henry was the waiter. But on that man out on the balcony. So where was the man who jumped into the balcony? Fowler began. "No," said Oswald. Oswald said, "No, he won't return. He will never return. You see, my young friend, there is no balcony. And if you want to see, you can see there is no balcony. There is no existence of the balcony. And that man Max had fallen on the ground from the top of the building, and obviously he died." So this is all about the story. And so we have find out that who is the midnight visitor. The midnight visitor is Max, who is also a rival spy of Oswald. I hope you have understood the story. Keep learning, and in my next class I will continue with the next chapter. Thank you.
নিতে আসবে।